Thank you. Let's have a good show. And away we go. Monday edition of the show. All across America on SportsMap Radio. We are worldwide on the SportsMap Radio app. Good to be with you. Pumped. Monday show. Big week ahead. Got a lot going on. It's gonna be an interesting week where we've got to once again just sit here and starve ourselves of football until we get to the obvious conference championship weekend, which is obviously going to be so enthralling. And isn't it interesting? And when we begin there tonight, 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number throughout the show if you want to weigh in. I'm sure everybody's got something to say about the divisional playoff round. But isn't it interesting? For all this conversation, think about this entire NFL season and how we got to where we are. And so much of the year was spent talking about what teams did and didn't do. Whether it's Tampa Bay and the disappointment there, even though they made the playoffs, we all knew they were, kind of crappy. Minnesota, the pretender thing. Mac Jones and the Patriots. And I'm not talking about the teams that won, because the teams that were good, obviously, by the end of the year, sort of rise to the top. The Kansas Cities, the Buffaloes, the Cincinnatis of the world. Philadelphia being much better than I think people had anticipated. A lot of people thought they could be the division winner, but I don't know how many people thought they would be this good. And we'll get into recapping what happened on Divisional Playoff Weekend here in just a second. Green Bay obviously being such a disappointment. New Orleans was a dark horse pick to potentially get to the Super Bowl. But by the time you get to the end of the season, and even if let's just strip away Divisional Playoff Weekend and look at where we are now. And obviously Brock Purdy is a bit of a square peg round hole thing, because nobody even knew who he was when the season started. But now that you've seen him play, this guy is going to be a good quarterback in this league for many years to come. And he's in the perfect setup where he should spend his entire career tethered to Kyle Shanahan and whatever this 49er team does. But then you got Jalen Hurts. Great pedigree, Alabama, Oklahoma, the quarterback thing. Fantastic quarterback. Joe Burrow, national champion. LSU. Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl champion. So by the time you get to the end of the year and you look at the four teams that remain, and yes, we could talk about the defenses of San Francisco and Philadelphia and how they might be differentiating points. When we talk about, it's interesting because Cincinnati can score, KC can score. They're okay defensively. But then in the NFC, you've got San Francisco, who's, can just stuff up and bottleneck everybody. And Philadelphia, who we saw what they did to the Giants after the Giants put up 30-plus in Minnesota just a little over a week ago. So by the time you get to the end of the year, you just start looking at quarterbacks. And you start looking at the four quarterbacks that remain. And obviously, there's this whole thing of Bill Parcells for many years said defense wins championships. And we could get to a point where we get this, immovable object, irresistible force, immovable object. Could get a San Francisco-Cincinnati Super Bowl, which is where I think we're headed. But you go back and look through the whole season, and the script and how we get there might have been different this year than most, right? I mean, we saw so many strange things throughout the course of this 18-week season. Think about everything we saw throughout the course of this year. But by the time you get to the end, it all sort of shakes out and works out the way it should. The teams that were favored at the beginning of the year as odds-on favorites to make it to this point in the season, they're all right there. So all that, everything from week 1 to week 18, it's all fodder, and it's something for us to talk about, and it's interesting. But by the time you get to the end of the script, by the time you get to the end of the movie, it's sort of the predictable outcome. You know, it's like if you watch a certain movie, if you watch a certain show, and you follow it well enough, you kind of know how it's going to end. You know, if you watch Law and Order SVU, like I'm a huge Law and Order SVU fan, and when you watch it at the beginning of the show, a lot of times my partner and I will look at each other and go, oh yeah, that's the part. We kind of have fun with it. You know, watching different, you know, FBI and all these different shows that are on. And we'll always look at each other and be like, who do you think it is? Oh, it's that person. Okay. And you know where the story's going to end, but you don't know how you're going to get there. And that's sort of the gist of this NFL season. I think we all knew who the contenders were going to be at the end of the year, but who would have thought that the script would involve going from Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo to Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey, oh, by the way, will wind up on the 49ers, you know, midway through the season at the trade deadline. Who would have thought that, yeah, the Bengals would get there, but they'd have a Super Bowl hangover at the start of the year, start off kind of sluggish, and then just go on this insane run in the second half of the year when everybody's talking about Buffalo and everybody's talking about Kansas City. Cincinnati just sort of just keeps on going, keeps on doing what they do, keeps on rolling. Joe Burrow, he's Joe Cool. And we're going to have to come up with his own nickname because, you know, there's only one Joe Cool. But that's besides the point. And Cincinnati is where they are, and they go through this terrible thing with, you know, they were on the field twice this year during two of the scarier medical incidents we've had in recent NFL history. The Tua situation on, Thursday Night Football, I believe it was, and then the Damar Hamlin situation. And that being what it was. So now you get to the end of the year, and look, there's Cincinnati. Team that went to the Super Bowl last year, basically your Super Bowl runner-up, and there they are. And then there's Kansas City. Oh, my goodness, they lost Tyreek Hill. What is this offense going to look like? Well, it was one of the most prolific offenses in the league this year. They scored a zillion points. They went 14-3 and just continued to do what they do. And another huge year for an Andy Reid coach team. And there's Kansas City in the Final Four. And their story is really the most simple of the first three teams we've talked about. San Francisco's path to get from week one to where we are now is extremely nuts. You could not script this. I don't care how vivid your imagination is. You never could have gotten to a point where we'd get to the conference championship game and Christian McCaffrey's getting handoffs from a guy named Brock Purdy. You couldn't get there. Not in a million years. And that takes us to Philadelphia, who I have poo-pooed all year, who I have had, I don't want to say a blind spot for, because I'm just still not sure. I should be sold on them by now. They went 14-3. No, right there with Kansas City for the best record in the league. They had a huge point differential. Jalen Hurts was outstanding all year. Why am I not there on Philadelphia? I just don't know. And I could sit here and come up with excuses. Well, they beat the Giants. Okay, the Giants beat Minnesota. How good was Minnesota? Philadelphia beat the Giants 3 times this year. So how good really were the Giants? There we are. You know, Daniel Jones, no real receiving options, and we'll get to him later on in the show because the Giants made some interesting news on Monday regarding their quarterback, Daniel Jones, who's about to become a free agent. And you've got Jalen Hurts, who's struggling with an injury at the end of the year here with the shoulder, but says he's not 100%. Sure as hell looked 100% to me against the Giants. And then you've got Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and the high ankle sprain. So again, the storylines, there continues to be these crazy script writing changes in how we get there, but we're still there. And at the end of the year, the 4 teams left standing are probably the 4 best teams remaining. They were probably the 4 best teams this season in the NFL, and I don't think there's any getting around it. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can hit me up on Twitter throughout the show at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter at The Back Page. And if you're not following me on TikTok, go ahead and do it, The Jason Page. But here we are, the final four of this NFL postseason. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll give you the news on the betting side of the conference title round, with San Francisco taking on Philadelphia Sunday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and then Cincinnati and Kansas City in the final game of the night. I could have taken either one early or late. It wouldn't have mattered to me. But you look at the games from this weekend, and we'll get into them coming up here in a few minutes. You look at the games from this weekend. Every game in the wild card round went over. Every game in the divisional round went under. Isn't that amazing? You get those defenses that dig it. Because, again, to get to the Super Bowl, you've got to be a great defensive team. To get to the conference championship game, you've got to have a great defense. And all of these teams were able to get stops. And what happened to Buffalo? How do you reassess? How do you reassess if you're Buffalo to get just decimated at home by Cincinnati? They didn't just get beat. Cincinnati made a statement. They said, forget this idea of Buffalo and Kansas City on a neutral site in Atlanta. No, this thing's going through us. We were in the Super Bowl last year, and we're going back. And I think we're going to see that matchup for years to come in the postseason. And, everybody loves to talk about Josh Allen and go all crazy about Josh Allen, but it's Joe Burrow everybody should be talking about. All the guy does is win, win, win. That's all he does. We'll come back, talk about the divisional playoff games from this weekend and the odds on the conference championship games. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. I want that for the podcast. Yeah. Everything except, obviously, the tease at the end. All we do is win, win. Oh, I got to cut. I got to. Bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum bum bum. NFL playoff talk is fine. You can keep it generic. All I do is win, win. Thanks for being with us. The telephone number, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Nick Hamilton coming up in 15 from Nightcast Media. Does a terrific job on all things LA sports, and some interesting news coming out of LA today with regard to the Lakers making a trade. I don't know if this is the one that fans of the organization were hoping to see, but it's the one you got. He's also a host over on SiriusXM, so we will talk with Nick Hamilton coming up, and we will do so 15 minutes from now. Get his thoughts on those things and a whole lot more. 1-800-224-2004. We'll get into the playoff odds for the NFL coming up in a few minutes. NBA live betting tonight. There are a whole bunch of games going on right now. There are 4 that are still ongoing. Make that 2. There are 3 still ongoing and a 4th about to get underway. Bulls just finished off the Hawks 111-100. They are late in Houston with the Rockets leading the Timberwolves 102-99. Jazz on top of the Hornets 58-45. Charlotte plus 13.5 on the live betting line there. In that Minnesota game, 3:33 to go in the 4th, by the way. Minnesota plus 2.5, trailing in Houston 102-99. Spurs and Blazers just underway in Portland. And the late game tonight, Memphis in Sacramento taking on the Kings. Interesting matchup. Good test for Sacramento, who's been one of the surprises of this NBA season thus far. So in looking at, the divisional round, and look, if you were, hoping like I was for some close games, you got a couple. And really, I don't think anybody could have anticipated that the Jaguars-Chiefs would actually be one of the more compelling watches. And obviously, a lot of that was aided by the fact that you had Patrick Mahomes suffer this high ankle sprain, which is really going to just play havoc with bettors this week when it comes to that Cincinnati-Kansas City AFC championship game matchup, because you're not going to know going to this weekend. You're going to get reports, you're going to get little, snippets here and there, but you're not going to know until Sunday what's going on with Patrick Mahomes until you see him on the field. And at that point, it's too late to try and make a bet. So you might just want to live bet that Kansas City-Cincinnati game. And I know a lot, look, I know a lot of these sports betting shows and these sports betting companies, they all make their living on telling you what to do before the game starts. But the reality is, if you bet Cincinnati and Kansas City, you might as well throw a coin in the air and call it, because you've got just as good a chance of winning on that game by doing that than you do anything else, because nobody's going to know the health of Patrick Mahomes until we get to Sunday, and you could actually see him out there on the field. If it's the Patrick Mahomes we saw on Sunday afternoon, with, just kind of hobbling around the field, or on Saturday afternoon, hobbling around the field, just trying to, be able to get off throws, just trying to make handoffs, doing the simplest things were that difficult for him. If that is the Patrick Mahomes that you're getting on Sunday against the Bengals are going to win that game. Because so much of what makes Patrick Mahomes so good is his ability to create on the fly. Whether it's, these crazy shovel passes or jump passes. It's hard to do a jump pass when you only got one leg and you can't really land on it. And that ankle sprain was nasty. It was a similar play to what happened to Tony Pollard, and we know how bad that was for the Cowboys running back. So right now it's Kansas City plus 1.5. It is plus 102 on the money line, and the total is 47.5 for Sunday in Kansas City. That is the late game. The earlier game is San Francisco and Philadelphia. And look, the odds makers know these two, all four of these teams, these two matchups, the matchups are just so close that the odds makers, they're not messing around. They're not playing with these spreads at all. I mean, you've got San Francisco plus 2.5. I mean, both of these games are basically toss-up games. You've got San Francisco plus 2.5 on the road in Philadelphia, plus 124 on the money line, and the total is 45.5. I got to tell you, my early glimpse at that San Francisco-Philadelphia matchup is under. Everything in my head is telling under. Want me to do that again, Justin? You like that? Can we make a drop of that? Me just going under. Yeah. Under. That's all that keeps running through my mind when I look at that San Francisco-Philadelphia game. Because I think both of these defenses are so good that this is just, again, it's going to come down to, which team makes or doesn't make a mistake. And I know it's so cliche to say this, and it's so simplistic. And, guys who cover the NFL for a living, this will drive them nuts because they love to go through all the different analytics, and this guy does this, and this is what happens in third downs. And, against the pass, this team does this, and against the run. Here's what it boils down to. Dak Prescott threw the ball to the other team twice. And I told you all week last week, I sat here and told you on this show, the Cowboys were going to have to win the turnover battle. And they didn't. They lost, I think it was 2-1. And you could say all you want, well, Brock Purdy should have had an interception. Well, Trayvon Diggs dropped it. And you didn't wind up with that interception. And the 49ers wind up scoring on that drive. And it's ball game over. So, and Brock Purdy just doesn't turn the football over. The one turnover for the Niners was a special teams turnover. And then you have Philadelphia. And you watch and see, is Jalen Hurts going to turn it over in a big spot? Can San Francisco make him turn it over in a big spot? And then the injury to Mahomes. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to break down these games, but I hate to say it, it's going to come down to quarterback play. And then if all things break even, you get down to, you wind up having a game that's a 2.5 point spread in Philadelphia and 1.5 in Kansas City because they're just going to be that close. If everything's equal and everybody plays their best game, these are toss-up games. You might just be better off betting inside the game. And obviously we'll do Paige's picks at the end of the week, and I'll give you some predictions. We went 2-2 in the divisional round on Friday with Paige's picks. We won the 2 games on Sunday. We lost the 2 games on Saturday. Simple as that. Those damn Giants didn't even come close to covering, and Jacksonville and Kansas City just missed the over. But then we recovered, got 2 wins on Sunday. I can't wait, man. This is going to be fun. And no matter what you get in the Super Bowl this year, it's going to be a great Super Bowl. Whether it's San Francisco and Cincinnati, San Francisco versus Kansas City, the Eagles versus the Bengals, the Eagles versus the Chiefs, no matter what, you're getting a great Super Bowl this year. And you're going to have storylines galore with the Bengals trying to finally win one. Or the Eagles with Jalen Hurts trying to get his first. And Nick Sirianni, who just took over this team, trying to get a first Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan trying to exorcise the demons of Super Bowls past. Kansas City trying to get another one for Andy Reid. And that would be a real big one when you talk about the legacy of Andy Reid and Mahomes getting a second. A lot of guys have won one. Few ever win multiple. So you're going to have enormous storylines coming out of this thing, no matter what. I'm not going to get to Dak Prescott. I know a lot of people are talking about Dak Prescott. We're going to do that in the next hour of the show. And I'll make no secret about it. We have a Dallas audience that's on with us for the final 2 hours of the show. And I want them to be able to hear the Dak Prescott stuff because it's relevant to that audience. So we'll talk about Dak in the next hour of the show. Top of the next hour, as a matter of fact. And coming up in a couple of minutes, we'll talk with my man Nick Hamilton, who does a great job, Nightcast Media. Also, I love what he does on SiriusXM. I have SiriusXM, so I get to listen to him when he's on there as well. So we'll talk about all of that coming up with Nick Hamilton in a couple of minutes here. Two big stories out of LA today. Artie Moreno's not selling the Angels. I view that as a bad thing for that organization. He's pulled them off of the selling block, the trading block, whatever you want to call it. We'll ask Nick about that. And then we'll get into it with him on what is happening with the Lakers and this trade they made today. Kendrick Nunn is gone. Rai Hachimura is coming. So stick around for that. Nick Hamilton on the other side, the cash in. We're just getting started. Lots more to do on SportsMap Radio. Shoot, I gotta do this. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk. Let me know when we have a minute left. Half past the hour, rolling along on this Monday. Talked a lot about the NFL in the first 30 minutes of the show. We will shift gears a little bit, and a couple big stories coming out of LA today, one involving the Angels, one involving the Lakers. Lakers make a deal. I'm not sure if it's the one everybody wants them to make, but it's a deal. And Artie Moreno is apparently not going to be making a deal, talking about the owner of the Los Angeles Angels. Let's bring it in with our man. Nick Hamilton does a terrific job. The man with Nightcast Media, also Sirius XM, a host there, joins us on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app, the SportsMap the Cash In podcast as well. All right, start with the Lakers. I mean, everybody wants them to make a deal, upgrade this team, make it better. I'm sure LeBron wants them to make it better. What does Rui Hachimura do for this team?
Well, I think you get some size. I think you get some shooting that you need. I think they can always use more shooters. And then you get a decent three-point shooter out of him as well. So I think this was a good trade. Kendrick Nunn, unfortunately, just didn't work out for the Lakers. It's not that he's a trash player. He just didn't work out in the system that the Lakers has designed. And so I think, he may work out better in D.C. And be able to add to what they have going out over there. But I think, as far as what the Lakers needed, I think it addressed a couple of issues, but ultimately, I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. But again, this is something that absolutely that's something that they needed to do, and it's a good trade for the Lakers.
Yeah.
I will say this is probably a very smart trade for the Lakers.
Yeah, and you know what? I get the sense with Nunn, I think he needs to go somewhere where he can play a lot more. And not to say he wasn't playing a lot with the Lakers, but I still don't think we truly know. I don't think he's even close to reaching his potential. I loved him when Miami went and got him. I loved him. I thought he was going to be, something that they could build and grow, and obviously it didn't work out there. Now you're talking about a guy that's already with his third NBA team, and when the die is cast that way on a guy, you just wonder how difficult it is for them to sort of recover and have a career.
Yeah, I think when you look at the overall dynamic of what this team is, how it's been constructed, and the blueprints of it, it's very puzzling at times because you look at, okay, what does LeBron really need? And the fact that we said this time and time again, Jason, what LeBron needs is to be surrounded with shooters, right? Apparently they didn't get him what he needed. And then LeBron is obviously not as happy as he would like to be, because of the way the team is going. But also, you can't just look at Rob Pelinka or everybody in the front office. You also have to look at LeBron James, because he's the one that has signed off, I'm sure, on quite a bit of movement and deals behind the scenes, whether he wants to admit to that or not. So I don't feel that sorry for LeBron. I understand his frustration because he still wants to win. The man is playing at a very high caliber in his 20th season. We don't see too many superstars of his caliber play at this high of a level in their 20th year. So I think you understand it, but at the same time, the Lakers, as long as they have Rob Pelinka as general manager, and it's nothing personal against him, but when they gave him that extension, I said, okay, the Lakers are done winning championships. And I think LeBron knows this, whether he openly admits it or not, they're done winning championships. LeBron is right now about, usurping the record that Kareem has set as being the all-time NBA scorer, which he will be. I think he's fourth as a Laker over Byron Scott in three-pointers. So they're going to be individual records to enjoy about LeBron, and enjoy LeBron now while you can, because eventually he is going to break down. He is going to get older. Father Time is undefeated. So I think once he gets the record of being the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, I think you'll see some sort of drop-off because it's hard to keep it up at that level. Will he be able to play with his son as he desires to play with Bronny? That remains to be seen.
I think he will. Really? You doubt? I think he's going to be. Bronny's only 2-3 years away. I think he's going to play with him.
Listen, Bronny is not a one and done project. He is 2 and done at the least. But he's going to come out after 1 year, and it's not going to be what everybody thinks it is. Because even though I think that kid is talented, I think he will benefit by staying in college. Because the more he understands the college game and be able to go up against some real deal competition and develop his game and let his game develop and grow and mature, and come to him, he's not going to be a stellar NBA player like his dad. One, that's a lot of pressure. Okay, you got to measure. Everybody's going to always measure you up to your dad, right? So you have to do something that's going to be a tad bit different. So Bronny has his own identity. Okay, and if he comes out one and done, he's not going to be the most effective player that he can be. If you watch his study now, his brother's a little bit nicer than him. Okay, but when you look at Bronny, and as far as you see the skill set, you see the potential, but at the same time, he's not a one and done kid. This is a two and done kid, maybe three and out. Look at Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma stayed the length of his college career, and look how much of a player he developed into, right? Because he benefited from staying in college. He benefited from working on his game, being around in a D1 program, being able to work on his shooting, work on his skill set, work on his defense, work on his ball handling skills. And those are the things, those are the key things that make a player an effective player. We talk about LeBron, but LeBron has struggled for quite a while, right? We look at the greats like Kobe Bryant. Kobe struggled, at times in his first couple of years, right? Same thing with Kevin Garnett. Same thing. These are guys, Michael Jordan in his second year. Look, he broke his leg, but I'm saying he had struggles too in those early years. It takes time for guys to develop sometimes. And I think Bronny is one of those.
Talking with Nick Hamilton gives us some time. Nightcast Media does a terrific job there. Also, Sirius XM, if you want to catch them as well. Talking a little bit about the Lakers and LeBron. I think, and look, you've seen them more than I have probably in person and even on TV, because God knows it feels like I get blacked out from every game here on the it's awful. The blackout stuff kills me. Every time they're on national TV, I can't watch them. I get blacked out. Or they're like on NBA TV and I get blacked out. I watch this Laker team, and maybe you're going to disagree with me on this. I feel like they're better than the record. They've lost a lot of games close late. Some bad officiating's cost them recently. Without Anthony Davis, I got a feeling they're going to go on a bit of a run in the second half. I know you're going to say I'm nuts. I think there's two teams that are going to go on runs in the second half. One of them's the Warriors, who I think are very capable of winning. I think they got something like 36 games left. If they went 23-13 or 24-12 in that stretch, I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Lakers are going to win some games, when they get Davis back and have this entire group together. I think they're going to win some games in the second half. I certainly think they're going to make it into the top 10 and get into the, the play-in situation. I don't know how far up they get in that list. What do you think?
Well, in the words of the great Bill Parcells, your record reflects who you are. Okay? Their record is exactly who they are. Regardless of what the excuses or the reasons may be, their record is exactly what they are. They could go. There's a potential they could go on a run in the second half, but I'll tell you another team I have a lot more confidence in going in runs, like you mentioned, them, the Golden State Warriors. Also look at the New Orleans Pelicans when Brandon Ingram starts to really get back and find his groove, and also the Portland Trailblazers. I think that's a team that's going to be sneaky. That's going to be very sneaky in the second half. They're going to go really under the radar on a lot of teams, and they're going to fool some teams in that second half of the season.
Okay.
So those are three teams I would pay attention to the most. The Clippers, on the other hand, are the iffy team, because the Clippers
Who knows what the hell they are, Nick? Who knows what the hell they are?
But here's the problem with the Clippers. The Clippers are so inconsistent, right? And they've had 50 million different lineups since the season began, right? Yeah. So they've dealt with injuries. They have dealt with lineup changes. And this is a team that we said in the beginning was a very deep roster. And they were. They were a very deep roster. They looked scary. Like, when you think about having Kawhi Leonard coming back, we know that when Kawhi plays his A game, he's a top-notch player. We know that. Him, Paul George, you added John Wall, who's now been a disappointment. I need to find the receipt because we need to get our money back. And what you saw in the beginning, the first 15, 20 games, you were like, okay. Even without Kawhi, even though Kawhi was in and out, you said, okay, Paul George to stay healthy, he put this team on his shoulders. We saw he's done that before, and he carried them to the Western Conference Finals, right? So you say, okay, Paul George can do X, Y, and Z. As long as the rest of the guys are healthy, we'll worry about Kawhi when he comes back. right? But as long as you got the other main component in Paul George, you got John Wall playing right, you got Reggie Jackson and those boys, you figured, okay, they'll at least be a top 4, top 5 team.
Yeah.
Right?
I get it. Listen, I get what you're saying. I'm up against the break, so I got to go. In one word, Artie Moreno keeping the Angels. Bad thing, right?
Stupid.
I got to go. Thanks. Nick Hamilton. Always appreciate the time, my man.
Thank you.
We'll come back. More to do as we continue in this hour of the Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. But
thank you,
yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to get more with you on the Angels, but I could talk basketball with you all day. Man, that sucks. That sucks for the Angels. I can't think that helps them keep Ohtani.
No, he's done. And I think you have to start looking at trades for Mike Trout, too. I think you have to trade Mike Trout to where he wants to go now.
Why the hell you even keep – then what's the point of even keeping the team? I mean, they're going to be terrible for years. I mean, I don't get it.
Artie Moreno is one of the worst owners in sports.
Yeah, I agree.
He's one of the worst owners in sports.
No, I agree.
I said that publicly. It's between him and Dean Spanos. We got two of the worst owners of sports right here in Southern California.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, I appreciate it. It was good to talk to you. Be well. Thanks.
Good to talk to you too, man. You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
No, Artie Moreno announced today he's not selling the team. Yeah. Yep. Well, like I said, the nightmare for them is now it makes it less likely that that Ohtani's going to leave. Well, their only hope of Ohtani staying was a new owner coming in and, sort of revitalizing that franchise. And now it's a big, big problem. Well, they may get them because I have a feeling they're both going to be gone. Say that again. Yeah, the Hamilton interview will go in there. Yeah. Thanks again to Nick Hamilton from joining us. Yeah, that's good. Thank you to Nick Hamilton for joining us in the first hour of the show tonight. Catch him on SiriusXM, founder of Nightcast Media, giving us some thoughts on some interesting decisions around the NBA. We'll just say that. I think the Lakers, I'm telling you, call me a sucker, call me a fool. I think the Lakers are going to make a run in the second half. I'm not saying they're winning a title or anything like that. First of all, if the Lakers make the playoffs, they're the team you do not want to play. Because especially in a playing game sort of situation, because all it takes is, Westbrook, Davis, and James showing up all together on the same day. And that's going to be good enough to beat some teams. You don't want to play them in that, play-in tournament that the league has. You don't want that. And in a 7-game series, go and look at the standings here for a second. If you're a Denver or you just saw them against Memphis. They went toe-to-toe with Memphis just a couple days ago. Sacramento, a team that's new to this sort of spot. Sacramento does not want to see the Lakers in the postseason. So I think the Lakers are a dangerous team if they get in. Do I think they're winning a title? No. But I do think they are a dangerous team. And I said it with Nick, and I'll say it again. I think the Warriors are going to make a huge leap in the second half. I know they're a game under 500. I know they just lost at home to Brooklyn without Kevin Durant. I think the Warriors are going to be rejuvenated out of the All-Star break, and I see them going on a run, over the last 30 games of the year, where they're going to be a top 6 team. I don't even think they're going to be in the play-in. There's no way you could tell me right now that the Warriors are going to stay a game under 500. There's no way you could tell me that at the end of the regular season, the Warriors aren't going to have a better record than the Mavericks, who right now are the 5 seed. You can't tell me that. You just can't. I didn't get to talk about it with Nick for that long, so I want to talk about it here for a couple minutes. And he mentioned it at the very end of the interview that it's stupid for Artie Moreno not to sell this team. Everybody thought the Angels were finally going to be sold, that they were going to get out from under Artie Moreno as the owner of the franchise. And then he puts out a statement tonight, this 132-word statement that read in part, as discussions advanced and began to crystallize, we realized our hearts remain with the Angels and we're not ready to part ways with the fans, players, and our employees. That coming from Artie Moreno, talking about unfinished business. And Rob Manfred could say all he wants. Oh, we're happy they're going to keep the team. He is not happy, because it is not a good thing when one of your premier market franchises in the Angels are consistently second fiddle to the Dodgers, a non-factor when we talk about the postseason every year. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they have 2 of the greatest players in the game, one being the best of this generation in Mike Trout, and another who may wind up being the best of this generation in Shohei Ohtani, sitting there suffering in misery in Los Angeles, or in Anaheim as it may be, with this Angels team that is the laughingstock of the AL West. I mean, goodbye, Ohtani. I think the only chance they had to keep Ohtani was the prospect of new ownership coming in, revitalizing that franchise, going out and adding some pieces around these guys, and Ohtani saying, you know what, I'll stay. Now forget it. Ohtani's not staying. Warriors majority owner Joe Lacob reportedly wanted the team. LA Times owner Patrick Soon-Shiong had been rumored to want the team. With a sale expected in a few months, this wasn't something that was going to linger on and on. This thing was getting ready to get done. According to ESPN, a source familiar with Moreno's thinking said, as the process continued to play out and a potential sale moved into the late stages, Moreno basically got cold feet. He's had the team for 2 decades. It's also possible prospective buyers didn't meet his asking price, though the source disputed that notion. They were going to go for big bucks. They were talking about $2.5 billion. Forbes valued the Angels at $2.2 billion just about a year ago in March. $2.5 billion. Yep, my uncle used to have a saying. He was my godfather. My great aunt used to have a saying, can't bury you with it. Yeah, all that money's great, but can't bury you with it. So, Artie, you might as well get out from under this thing soon. Here's what's crazier, though. How much valuations of these franchises, and we talk about this stuff all the time on the show, and I know people's eyes probably glaze over, but Moreno bought the Angels from the Walt Disney Company in 2003. Ready for this? $183 million. And now it's worth what? 15 times that? 13 times that? Some stupid number. It's just crazy. $2.5 billion. Does Trout ask for a trade? Ohtani just wait it out and then go, the free agency route, or do they trade? They've got to trade away Ohtani if he's going to become a free agent and walk anyway. So then you start wondering, where does Ohtani go? That's going to be the interesting. I think that's going to become the really interesting story. Is where does Ohtani wind up landing? The Mets have resources. The Dodgers have resources. Who's got the minor league cash of players that the Angels are probably going to want in return? They've also had issues with minor league players in that organization. Under Moreno's lead and under his watch, reneging on bonuses in the international market. Of course, the overdose death of Tyler Skaggs in 2019, which triggered a 22-year prison sentence for a longtime member of the team's PR staff. It's rough, man. It has not been easy sledding. And look, this team was dominant from 2004 to 2009, and ever since then, they've been an afterthought. I think they've made the playoffs once since 2009, and you've just watched the Dodgers get better and better right next to you. And they had huge payroll, and that's why I always laugh when people talk about, well, it's the payroll disparity. The Angels moved their payroll into the stratosphere this year. They went out and got a bunch of veteran players. How'd that work out? Non-factor. Total non-factor. And now we'll have to wait and see if, who knows, maybe here's another thing. I'll throw one possibility out there to give hope to Angels fans, and here it is. Maybe Moreno is doing this to get the price up. Maybe he's doing this in the hopes that Lacob or this LA Times owner, maybe he's hoping somebody will come running to him and say, all right, I want $3 billion. I want $3 billion. They did a 20-year, $3 billion contract with Fox that started in 2012. Maybe he's trying to drive up the price. But if that happens, we'll find out really within a week or two, because somebody's going to come running to him and say, no, sell it now. I don't think this story is done. I'm just throwing it out as a possibility, but I don't think this story is necessarily over. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at any point during the show. At The Back Page, again on Twitter. At any point during the show, at The Back Page. In the next hour, I think we have to talk about Dak Prescott. And where do you go from here if you're the Cowboys? Have you figured out? Have you just found out the ceiling for Dak? And if so, where do you go when you're talking about a guy that you owe all this money to and that you gave a monster contract to? I think that's going to be a fascinating offseason watch. We all thought the big story in the Cowboys offseason was going to be Mike McCarthy. That's not the story at all. The story is going to be what they do at the quarterback position. And let your mind run wild with the different possibilities there. About a little reuniting. Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers. We're back with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. On the Artie Moreno stuff, I'd say no. The Dak stuff that I'm about to get into will probably be in there, though.
You said you'll take your time. Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
I sense you're antagonized by the question.
You're scratching.
It's only the question that everybody wants to hear.
You're scratchy. I appreciate your asking. Thank you.
Wow. That is awesome. I have to play that in the next hour. No, that was Tom Brady. That was Tom Brady. Jim Gray asked him about his future, and he was pissed about it. Did they win? Wow. It's a good win for them.
And everybody guessing, you said you'll take your time. Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
I sense you're antagonized. Tom, you're leaving.
Okay. of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Hello to our friends listening in Dallas. 97.1 The Freak. Welcome in. Oh, don't worry. I saved the best for you guys tonight because I know. It's tough being a fan of the Dallas Cowboys right now. I'm not doing this to rub salt in the wounds.
Purdy out of the shotgun. Kittle and Juszczyk are right. Ayuk the other side. Handoff McCaffrey. Touchdown! San Francisco!
Greg Papa, the call. 49ers Radio Network. 16-9 at that point. Niners hold off the Cowboys. And look, anybody who's listened to this show, and we've been on since September. I think we've been on 97.1 The Freak since probably a month or so after that, knows I have been as ardent a defender of Dak Prescott as there has been. But with all of that having been said now, I don't think there is any way Cowboy fans, NFL prognosticators, I don't think anybody can predict what happens next for this team as it relates to Dak Prescott. Because after yesterday's performance, and you combine that with everything that happened during his run throughout the regular season and all the interceptions he threw, you are forced to ask yourself this question. I said this at the end of last hour, and I'll revisit it here now. Are you talking about a guy that is maxed out? He says he can get better. No excuses for the interceptions against the Niners. It's going to get better. I'll never let that happen again, which is, by the way, a promise he should not make because I don't know if it's one that he realizes he may not be able to keep. Here's the question, though. I was thinking about this last night in bed and then this morning in bed. And I think this is I know that this is sort of, rear view mirror, Monday. It's literally Monday evening quarterbacking for me to ask this question. But I guarantee 49ers know the answer to it. 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America, 800-224-2004. Here's the question. Do the Cowboys win that game last night against San Francisco if Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback all year for the Cowboys? If Cooper, and here's the reason I ask this question. You are watching a team, and last night the Cowboys played against a team that is essentially starting the clone of Cooper Rush. I don't think I've heard anybody say this anywhere today. Then again, I don't listen to a lot of sports media because I think a lot of it sucks. But think about this for a second. If Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback, and you go look at his numbers this season for the Cowboys, you don't have the turnover problems with a Cooper Rush that you have with a Dak Prescott. He's going to manage the game better than Prescott did. And look, you don't need me to tell you this by now because you know it's the truth. You've seen the stats on it, and I'm not a stat geek, but this is a stat that doesn't lie. Dak Prescott, when he has to scramble out of the pocket and make plays on his leg, he's one of the worst in the league at making throws on the run. When the pressure comes, he throws interceptions. I mean, there's no getting around this. This is who he is. But look at Cooper Rush, weeks 2 through 6, and what he did for this team. And you start asking yourself, take the Rams game out of the equation. Sorry, not the Rams game. The Eagles game where he threw 3 interceptions. Take that out of the equation. He didn't throw another interception. So you look at that and you start asking yourself, if we had just not turned over the football last night with Dak, throwing interceptions, do we beat the 49ers? I said it on the air last week. If they didn't win the turnover battle, they weren't going to win the game, which I was right about. I also told you to bet the house on San Francisco, which I was also right about. But what did I say? When Dak came back from his injury, I remember specifically making this point on the air. They don't need Dak to come back and throw the ball all over the place. They don't need Dak Prescott to come back and, be Patrick Mahomes or be Joe Burrow. They didn't need that because their defense was as good a weapon as anything they had on that team. I said what he needs to do is not give the football away. And what did he do for whatever it was? 14 games this year? 13 games? 12 games? He gave the football away for 12 games. He did not protect. He did not value those possessions. And I'm sorry if it was just a couple of games here and there, but it was every game we saw this from Dak. And now you're at a very painful spot for this franchise because it's already been 30 years since you won anything. I mean, think about this. An entire generation of Cowboy fans have not seen this team win anything. And that is extremely problematic, unless you're Jerry Jones and you just don't care because you're an entertainment entity, and that's all that matters. We're entertaining. We're in the news. People are talking about us, which they are. And we're on TV all the time. And my franchise is worth $1 zillion, so who cares? But here's the problem. You've got Dak under contract. They have a potential out in 2024, but you're going to have to pay him for next year. $31 million. Dead cap space, $90 million. And now you have to make a decision as an organization. Are we going to give him one more year as the starting quarterback to fix the turnover problem? And then for 2024, we get out if it's bad. But by that point, maybe your window's starting to close or has closed. I mean, this team, I said this before, from a defensive standpoint, and they proved it last night. They shut down the 49ers. Remember, that Brock Purdy 49ers team was averaging 36 points a game at home with Brock Purdy at quarterback. They scored 16 last night. I mean, you had your opportunity last night to win that game if your quarterback was a little better. Even the Cowboys' own social media took Dak Prescott to task, which was one of the more bizarre things I've ever seen. If you haven't looked at it, go look at the Cowboys' Twitter feed from last night. It's just right there for all of you to see. So they've got one more year where they've got to deal with Dak. And then they can get out for 2024. But where's the league? Where are quarterbacks? Where is the movement in the league? There's going to be a ton of quarterback movement in this offseason. So if you're going to do something at the quarterback position, this is the offseason to do it. Aaron Rodgers is on the table. Who knows what's going on with Tom Brady? Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson. And there's going to be a lot. Baker Mayfield. And I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's the answer. I'm just throwing out names of quarterbacks that are going to be available in this offseason for you that may not be there next offseason, this time next year. And then then you wind up like the 49ers, where you have to stay in an ugly marriage with Dak Prescott just because there's no other options out there. So I think you're talking about a real intersection, a real crossroads for this franchise in the offseason. That if you make the decision to stick with Dak, you're probably stuck with him now. You know, if you go with him next year, who knows what's going to be available next offseason? I think you got a lot of problems if you're the Cowboys. But here's the one thing you have to determine. Was this year an aberration? with the turnover number? Was this something that was just something that can be overcome? I mean, look, we've seen guys overcome the turnover bug that learn to take care of the football more. Perfect example is Daniel Jones. But you saw regression from Dak Prescott this year. Go and look at his statistics. Go and look at the trajectory of his interception count. 2019, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. 2020, obviously, he didn't play that much because of the injury. 21, 37, and 10. This year, 23 and 15. And the quarterback rating at the lowest it's been in 6 years, for whatever you think that's worth. And the completion percentage was down some. I want to know what Cowboy fan. I'm fascinated because, look, Cowboy fans, I've said this before. Cowboy fans are smart. And I'm not saying this to patronize you. I know you're smart because you called me last week when I asked the question about this team's prospects for beating San Francisco, and all of you pointed to Dak Prescott and said, I'm a little worried. So you knew going into this game what the problem was. 1-800-224-2004. I want to hear from you, Cowboy fans. 800-224-2004. Let's talk about it. On the other side, I'm Jason Page. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Make sure the phones are working. Let me know if we have any calls. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number from anywhere in America. Anywhere at all. 800-224-2004. The question is simple. What do you do if you're the Cowboys at quarterback? Because I don't think there's any getting around it. The aberration of this season for Dak Prescott was the game against Tampa Bay. And we had Nick Ferguson on the show last week, former NFL safety for a decade in the NFL, and he said it best. Against Tampa Bay with no pressure on him, Dak looked great. Who wouldn't look great if they had all day to throw, a pocket that moved around comfortably, able to go through all his progressions, and you saw what Dak Prescott could do in that situation? Well, guess what? You're not going to get that luxury in the NFL. And as soon as he played against a real defense, arguably the best defense in this postseason, Philadelphia would probably try to argue with that, but I'll still say it's San Francisco that has the best defense remaining in this postseason. And you saw him do what he does, throw the ball to the other team. So what do you do if you're the Cowboys? I mean, look, there's no way you can't tell me, anybody of sane mind that's a fan of the Cowboys or a watcher of the NFL, that the thought hasn't crossed your mind. And I don't know how you'd ever get this kind of deal done, because the Packers are going to want 2 number ones. And are you going to mortgage that kind of future? Again, if the window is now for the Cowboys, then you've got to do something this offseason. Otherwise, you're just sticking with Dak, which, who knows? Maybe it works out. Maybe he improves on the interception numbers next year. Maybe you go get another receiver, although I don't think the receivers are the problem. I think the quarterback is the problem now. There's no way you can go through that game last night. Go through the entire game and take it with the totality of the season. There's no way you come away from that thinking, yeah, this is the quarterback to lead us to a Super Bowl. The leap he would have to make from where he is now, I view it the same way I view the Aaron Rodgers situation in Green Bay. If you're Green Bay and you can't get to a place within the organization, if you can't come to a consensus that you can win a Super Bowl in 2023, if you can't win a Super Bowl in 2023 with Aaron Rodgers, then you have to move him this offseason, which there is news on, and we'll get to it later in the show. I think the same goes. I think you get to the same place here now after several years of Dak Prescott in Dallas. I think you're forced to make the same determination. If after what you've seen last night, you think you can win a Super Bowl with him, then hey, you stand pat. You hope he gets better next year, and maybe you upgrade a little, here and there, and you roll the dice next year and come back with the same team. But now you're not as good as Philadelphia. You're not as good as San Francisco. So now the goal has to be, how do we get by those two teams? Is Dak Prescott the guy to do that? Let me go Ryan in Dallas. Listen on 97.1 The Freak. Ryan, what's going on? Look, I think that's an interesting way to phrase it. I don't know if I've ever quite heard that, but, you go and compare and look at the upper echelon of quarterbacks in this league. And I'm not even talking about the guys that remain in this postseason. I'm talking about, the Josh Allens, the Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, if you want to put him on that level, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, if you want to put him up there after 1 year. And you look at Dak and you say, is he as good as any of those guys? Is he at that level? And I think we know the answer. You're right. Right. Yeah, it's a great point, Ryan, and I appreciate the call in Dallas tonight on 97.1 The Freak, our friends there. Good call, Ryan. Thank you. So I think he's spot on. And there were a few people that pointed that out. I did an interview today with a station in Connecticut. Some friends of mine that host a morning show there asked me to come on. And one of them noted the same thing. He when you watch him on the sideline, that look in his eyes. And look, this is getting into, the minutia of this. The fact of the matter is, the problem is, the guy just turns the football over too much. You have to value your possessions, especially in the postseason. You have to value them because you don't get a ton of them. And watching Dak last night, just don't get the sense that desperation, you just don't get the sense that it's there. And don't even get me started on that last possession for Dallas because that was painful to watch. Dalton Schultz looked like he didn't know the rules of football, which some people might say comes down to coaching, and that might be a fair point. But let's say this right now, and I said this before the game against San Francisco, and I'll say it now. Mike McCarthy is not the problem here. And Jerry Jones made it clear after the game, so I think we can put the conversation to bed. Mike McCarthy's going to be the head coach of this team next year. But you have to make changes somewhere because you know after this game, and I know people will talk about the Tony Pollard injury in this game and how it may have changed the course of it, and that's all great. But I watched Kansas City basically with their quarterback on one damn leg figure out a way at home to beat Jacksonville. And that's not a bad Jacksonville team. That's a Jacksonville team, by the way, that beat Dallas. So you're not going to be able to sell me on this idea that it's the Tony Pollard injury that cost the Cowboys that game. What cost the Cowboys that game, let's all say it. It's like a therapy session because we have to admit the problem if we're going to solve it. The problem was Dak Prescott. Full stop. 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. 800-224-2004. Be part of the show. Tweet at me as well, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. Do we have breaking news? Oh, we got breaking news alert. Yes. Breaking news. It involves Tom Brady, who is speaking. The podcast that he does on Sirius XM, including this interesting little nugget from Brady, talking with Jim Gray, of course, who does the hosting for this podcast. On the podcast, Let's Go, with Larry Fitzgerald, Jim Gray, and Tom Brady. Listen to this exchange between Jim Gray and Tom Brady. It's worth it.
Tom, you're leaving everybody guessing. You said you'll take your time. Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
I sense you're antagonized by the question.
You're scratching.
It's only the question that everybody wants to hear.
You're scratchy. I appreciate your asking. Thank you.
Wow. That was great. That was awesome. I like hearing that fire out of Brady because for so long it's always been say the right thing, and he finally just got tired of answering the same damn question
regarding your football career.
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it.
Sign me up. Give me that Tom Brady for 17 weeks, 18 weeks. I'll sign up for that. Oh, what a mess. What an absolute mess. All right. He doesn't know what he's going to do. I still think the longer he sits on it, the more likely it is he's going to play next year. And I think it comes down to what are his options? I say it all the time. Man's only as faithful as his options. If Brady's got a chance to play for a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl next year, he will play next year. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think that opportunity is going to be there. We're back with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. I just love that. If I knew what I was going to fucking do it. Oh, that's great. Hey, do you know how to pull an entire hour? Because I'd like you to email me these 3 hours if you can. Yeah, I want all 3 hours of the show tonight, and I want you to email it to me through. I could give you my email address. Yep. Cool. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Go lay down. Go lay down. We haven't done any live betting in this hour of the show. We'll get some in, though. 800-224-2004. If you're on hold, don't move. 800-224-2004. On Twitter, at the back page. Talking a lot about Dak Prescott in this hour of the show. Because listen, of all the things to come out of this weekend, and I think Buffalo's being decimated by by the Bengals on Sunday was certainly a big wake-up call as well, for the fact that as good as we like to talk about Buffalo being, they're obviously another team that's just not there yet. Despite the fact that Josh Allen's great. And I think the loss of Von Miller was huge to that team as well. But if you look at the Cowboys, I mean, with Dak throwing 2 interceptions, you still had every opportunity to win that game on Sunday. I mean, you lost 19-12. And your quarterback didn't play all that well at all. So as an organization, you're forced to sort of look within and make a decision as to whether or not you're just going to roll the dice again with this guy and basically put the same team out on the field next year and hope for a different result. That's all predicated around your quarterback. Let me bring in Randy in Dallas listening on The Freak. What's going on, Randy? Please. Yep. It's a great question. Yes. Yeah, and look, there are some guys, we get on Kirk Cousins all the time. You know what he is? He's another Kirk Cousins. He's a guy that can win games during the regular season. He's a guy that's going to beat a lot of times the teams he's supposed to. I mean, he's won almost 2/3 of his games as the Cowboys' starting quarterback. So when you look at the numbers that way, you're like, well, the guy wins. But then when you boil it down to what matters the most when it comes to winning in the postseason, there's just certain things he can't do, much like Kirk Cousins, who, a lot of people are trying to give a pass to because of the fact they lost to the Giants and it was their defense and blah, blah, blah. I think you say the same thing when you look at Dak. Can you get over the hump with him? And based on what we've seen through this course of his career so far, I think the answer is no. But you ask a great question, Randy, and that is, what are you going to do? Are you going to roll the dice for one more year and then hope if it doesn't work out, you have the out, you have the potential out for 2024 where you can get out from under this contract and not have to, go through with the rest of it. If you make that decision, then, as an organization, you've got to figure out, where you go at the end of next year. And I don't know if they know what that is. And you know what? This comes down to, and I appreciate the call, Randy. This comes down to the Jerry Jones stuff, too. You just, the last words Randy said in that call, I think are very telling. I don't think they have a plan. And I think that's one of the most important statements out of that call is, I don't think they have a plan. What's the Cowboys' plan if it's not Dak? Again, there's going to be a ton of guys available in free agency this year. There's going to be a lot of names, either through free agency or through trades, that are available for the Cowboys in this 2023 offseason. So where do you go? You're gonna have to trade a whole bunch of assets to get either a Lamar Jackson or and by the way, I don't think you're winning a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson either. Let me just get that out there. I have always said that, and I will stick to it until the day I'm done. You will not win a Super Bowl. You will not win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. But I think you've made the determination now, if you're the Cowboys, or if you should have, that you're not going to win one with Lamar Jackson. So who's out there that's not going to turn over the football as much, that you can match with Mike McCarthy, with the rest of this offensive, with the rest of what this team has offensively, and you're going to be able to win. I don't know what the answer to that is. If it's Aaron Rodgers, is it Tom Brady? Again, just take it for 1 year. Do you trade everything away to get Aaron Rodgers for 1 year? I know it sounds crazy, the idea of Aaron Rodgers playing for Dallas. But again, if Green Bay makes the determination that they're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl with him, they're going to have to move him. And there is news on that front that we'll get to later in the show. But if you make that determination that you can't win a Super Bowl with him in Green Bay, you're going to have to move him. And if you move him, well, then what's the answer? How many teams are going to be able to give up the assets that they're going to ask for? And if I told you as a Cowboys fan, you got a 2-year window with Aaron Rodgers and this team, you trade away Dak. I mean, it probably works from a contract perspective, I would have to think. So why not? You send Dak to Green Bay. You take Aaron Rodgers, move him to Dallas. Send a couple of number ones from Dallas to Green Bay. And now you've got 2 years with Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl. If I told you as a Cowboys fan that was a possibility, would you sign up for it? If the answer is not yes, then you're just not about winning. Because I know while Rodgers had a down year this year, and I'll give some of the credit to that on the thumb injury, although I think if you're out there every week and you chose not to get surgery or sit out and let it heal properly, it's on you. But let's just put that aside. What's more likely an aberration, the year that Rodgers had or the year that Dak had? Which one is more of a blip on the radar versus reality? You're more likely to say Rodgers was the blip on the radar than reality when you look at his career and his interception to touchdown ratio, or his touchdown to interception ratio. 1-800-224-2004. Listen, call me crazy. I would do the Rodgers thing for 2 years in a heartbeat. Great. You'll be a playoff team next year and you'll lose to San Francisco or Philadelphia in the divisional playoffs, or maybe even get beaten in the wild card round. Right? I mean, because what's going to change between this year and next that you think you're suddenly going to be better than Philadelphia, who is 14-3? The Giants are only going to get better. I like I said, if I gave you 2 years of Mike McCarthy reunited with Aaron Rodgers, which is fascinating to think of unto itself, by the way, because I know for a fact that Aaron Rodgers at one point thought Mike McCarthy was a big old dummy. Even though he's never said it publicly, I saw him say it privately. I was privy to a conversation between him and a friend via text message, and I saw Rodgers say Mike McCarthy was one of the dumbest people he ever came across. Would he actually want to go play for him now? Now seeing, maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side with Matt LaFleur. Maybe that Mike McCarthy, maybe he was a little smarter than I thought. I did win a Super Bowl with him after all. And if you're keeping McCarthy in Dallas, there's no way in the back of his mind Jerry Jones isn't thinking some way, hey, maybe we can get Aaron Rodgers down to Dallas to come play for us. There's no way. My God, just for the headlines alone, he would do it. You know that's what Jerry craves. You know that's what Jerry's appetite is all about, is just be relevant, baby. Al Davis used to say, just win, baby. Jerry Jones, he says, just be relevant, baby. And that's what you get when it comes to the Cowboys. All right, we'll shift gears, move away from the Cowboys. The Aaron Rodgers rumor mill is in full effect after a story this weekend from Adam Schefter suggesting the team is open to trading him. And how to do an apology properly, the Shannon Sharp edition. It's also next on the Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Give me Bowl. Oh, hello! Holy shit. Wow, Cole Anthony got some ups. Holy shit. I just saw him on the receiving end of an alley-oop. Wow. I don't know who threw it to him, but he went way up and got it. Orlando's going to be good. I don't know when, but they're going to be good. They beat Boston. I think that's the second or third time they've beaten Boston. Bowl is a human cheat code. Oh, yeah. I once stood in an elevator at Madison Square Garden next to Hashim Thabit. You probably don't remember, or maybe you do. Played for UConn, and then, he huge bust, which I predicted that he would be. And I stood next to him in an elevator, and he's 7'6". And you can't appreciate how big that is unless you stand right next to it. Like, it's just stupid. Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you for being with us. SportsMap Radio. The SportsMap Radio app. Oh, the Aaron Rodgers rumor mill is heating up. Yep. The offseason of Aaron Rodgers. Again. Well, it'll also be the offseason of Tom Brady, because if you missed it earlier in the show on his podcast this week, Brady didn't want to talk about where he thought this offseason was going to wind up for him and whether or not he was going to wind up staying in Tampa Bay or continue to play or retire. If you missed it earlier in the show, this came out tonight from the Let's Go podcast, which you can catch on Sirius XM. This was Tom Brady with Jim Gray. Listen.
Tom, you're leaving everybody guessing. You said you'll take your time. Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
I sense you're antagonized by the question.
You're scratching.
It's only the question that everybody wants to hear.
You're scratchy. I appreciate your asking. Thank you.
I love the fact that Jim Gray, still at this age, he just doesn't care. Doesn't give an F. He's going to ask the question. Whether Tom wants to hear it or not, he's going to ask the question. So, I guess it's the offseason of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. I don't think it's just the offseason of Aaron Rodgers. But, of course, there is a lot of speculation as to what's going to happen. Now, remember, they drafted Jordan Love in 2020. I mean, we're going on almost 3 years of this team with Jordan Love and them still really not knowing what he is as far as a potential heir apparent to... And you spent a fairly high draft pick on him to figure out what he is. So here's the latest as it relates to Aaron Rodgers. Ian Rappaport was on the Pat McAfee show earlier today. Said the Packers might be willing to move on from Rodgers for the right price. Thinks a deal can get done, but it has to be the right compensation. Peter King at NBC Sports says the Packers certainly are going to want a lot for Rodgers, and that it could start at 2 first-round picks. Peter King guesstimates the Packers would want a pair of first-rounders for Rodgers, says the Jets might be willing to meet that price. I have said that all along. But here's another thing. If it's known, if the Packers make it known in the NFL, GM circles, if they make it known that Aaron Rodgers is available and the Jets get him as opposed to the Cowboys, if I were a Cowboy fan, I'd lose my mind. You kidding me? We let the Jets get this guy and we didn't? Now, look, maybe there's also the possibility the Packers won't trade him within the conference. Because then they risk, gosh, what if he comes back to beat us in the postseason? Whereas the only way that could happen if they trade him to the Jets. This shouldn't be the line of thinking, but in the back of somebody's mind it is. There's a whole bunch of quarterback news going on around the league right now. But Adam Schefter put it out there this weekend, and everybody's kind of running with it now, this idea. And look, Tuesday is usually the day where Pat McAfee interviews Aaron Rodgers. So we may get some answers tomorrow about how Rodgers feels about this. If Pat actually, asks him something about something other than, the color of his favorite tree or what's his hallucinogen of choice in the offseason, or lets him pimp whatever drink he's guzzling during the interview. All those hard-hitting questions that you get from Pat McAfee when he talks to Aaron Rodgers. But we may get close to... We may get some news tomorrow on the Aaron Rodgers front. We'll keep an eye and see what he says on McAfee. I watch it so you don't have to, because God knows if it wasn't my living to find out what Aaron Rodgers says in these interviews, I would never watch Pat McAfee. But that's the way it is. So, how to do an apology correctly. I want to give this some love because we always hear apologies from people. We got the kind of non-apologies from Kyrie Irving, then the forced one at the end when he realized, I might not be able to play if I don't apologize. And you get all these insincere, if I offended anyone, ... Well, this is how to do an apology properly. If you were listening to the show on Friday night, you may have heard us talking about the fact that Aaron Rodgers, Shannon Sharpe was at a Laker game. And apparently, while wearing a gorgeous sweater, by the way, he got into it with so 2 or 3 guys from the Memphis Grizzlies, Dylan Brooks being one of them, and then Steven Adams came over, and then John Morant came over, then John Morant's dad came over. It was just this big ugliness at the end of the first half. And everybody wondered what Shannon Sharpe was going to say on Monday morning when he came on Undisputed. Well, he came on Undisputed Monday morning and did exactly what you should do. Take a listen.
Yes, thanks, Jen. As you probably have heard or have seen Friday night at the Lakers game, I want to apologize for my behavior. Guys, I've preached for the last 6.5 years, responsibility and accountability. And I take full responsibility for what transpired. It does not matter what Dylan Brooks said or how many times he said it. Me being the responsible person, me having the platform that I have and having so many people look up to me, I was wrong. I should have lowered the temperature in the arena. Instead, I turned the temperature up. And I let it get out of hand. And I want to apologize to a few people. First of all, I want to apologize to the Lakers organization, Jeannie Buss, the Buss family. I apologize for any harm or unwanted attention that I brought to your organization. I want to apologize to the fans that were in attendance and the fans that watched on television, because that's not what you paid for and that's not what you tuned in to watch. Shannon Sharpe should have been mentioned as someone that was at the game, not someone that let his emotions run high and get out of hand during the game. I want to apologize to the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies organization and fans, I am sorry. More specifically, I want to apologize to Dylan Brooks. He is a fierce competitor, and seeing him up close, I get a sense of why he is what he is and how he's wired the way he's wired. Bruh, I apologize. I wish you the best of luck the rest of the season and continued success. Ja, it was a privilege and an honor to watch you up close and personal. Skip and I talk about you a lot of times, but to see what you do, you're able to elevate, lead the floor, contort your body, and finish at the rim is unbelievable and extremely impressive. And I want to apologize to you. I also want to apologize to my stylist, Hollywood. Bro, you had an impeccable record before you took me on as a client. And I want to apologize for my behavior because you were in attendance. And if I caused any smudge on your resume, I'm deeply sorry for that. I also want to apologize to LeBron James because y'all know how I feel about him. And he supported me through thick and thin. And, bro, I'm sorry that I put you in this situation, that you had to support me in something like this. So I want to apologize to you. I want to apologize to my family. I want to apologize to my brother, my sister, my mom, my kids, and my grandson. Because one day you're going to be old enough and you're going to see what transpired in that arena. But I also hope you get an opportunity to see this apology that I'm giving, because I was wrong. And I'm never going to be too big to say I'm sorry. I'm never going to be too big to say that I was wrong. And in that situation, I was absolutely wrong. And last but not least, I want to apologize to you, Turbo. You've been great to me. I appreciate everything that you've done over the last 8-9 months. I want to say I'm sorry. Again, to my Fox family, FS1, guys, I'm sorry for any unwanted attention that I brought your way. And I hate that you have to answer. No one should have to trend because of something that I did. So I want to apologize to anybody at Fox or FS1 that's had to answer questions on my behalf. What happened to Shannon? Why was Shannon doing this? I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not perfect. I am not. And I'm never going to say that wasn't Shannon Sharpe, because that was me. That was just me getting out of character. And I'm sorry for all those that saw my action and took offense to my actions. I am sorry.
That's how you do an apology, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you do an apology. None of this, if I offended, there was none of that. It was, I screwed up. Amazing. How easy that is to do. Time and time again, we see guys screw up the apology. That was a masterclass. I think I counted like 22 times he used the word, I apologize, or I'm sorry. Why is that so difficult? Think it makes you less manly? Final hour of the Cash In is right around the corner on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. For the podcast? No. I try to keep the podcast short. So if I give you 2 or 3 segments of the podcast, that's it. I want the first segment of Dak stuff I talked about. That's it. So from the first hour, you've got 2 segments. You've got the Dak stuff. And that'll probably be it. Those 3 segments will probably be it for the podcast. Yeah, please. Thank you. Do you believe? Half past the hour, rolling along on this Monday. Ain't no living in a perfect world. There ain't no perfect world anyway. Ain't no living in a perfect world. But we'll keep on dreaming of living in a perfect world. Do 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 do. It's an old Huey Lewis song. Keep on dreaming of living in a perfect world. Ba da 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 ba da 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 da. I'm old. I sing old person music. Yeah, 80s. Final hour of a Monday/Tuesday edition of the show. Good to have you with us. SportsMap Radio. across the country on our many affiliates, or the SportsMap Radio app, which, of course, you can listen to anywhere. And you don't need to worry about the radio. You can just listen to us anywhere, anytime, any place. It's all good. On the SportsMap Radio app. By the way, I should mention, because producer-engineer Justin is hard at work on the podcast as we speak. After the show is done, if you go to Spotify or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, you can actually download the Cash In podcast. It's got the best of the show every night, cooked up fresh for you. Some radio shows like to just take their entire show and put it up in a podcast. I think that's silly. Because as much as we strive for every segment to be great and podcast worthy, not every segment is. So we take the best of the show, we curate it, mold it, put it all together, and then it's right there for you in the Cash In podcast. Again, get it on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe. Do that. You can also watch us right now if you want over on twitch.tv. Twitch.tv. Jason Page 77 is my name there. You could also watch on our Twitter feed. If you just go into my Twitter feed at the back page, you'll see the link there, and you could watch as well. There's all sorts of ways to stay in touch with us here on the show. I want to put it on TV. I want to take this 3 hours every night and put it on like a TV or an OTT platform. I think that'd be cool. We're working on it. We're getting there. The show only launched in September, so we are sort of molding it and shaping it to what we ultimately want it to be. So we'll get it there. We'll get it to where we want. Thanks again to the folks at SportsMap Radio for all their help in putting together the show every night as well. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 on Twitter at the back page. We'll get into some NBA live betting, also some Super Bowl odds coming up in about 13 minutes here on the show. So there's one more quarterback to talk about that we have not discussed today, and that would be the one that plays for the New York Football Giants. The Giants have to make a decision as to what they're going to do with Daniel Jones. And, much like, the Cowboys got to figure it out with Dak Prescott, much like the Packers have to figure it out with Aaron Rodgers, the Giants have to decide, is Daniel Jones the guy that can get us to the next level? And they had to take their sweet old time, over these last few years, because you had the quarterbacks, the head coaching situation was kind of in flux with them. But now you've gotten 4 years of Daniel Jones. And in the fourth year of Daniel Jones, you feel like you've gotten to a place where you think you can win with him. 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in 16 games, the first time he got to play 16 games. He also rushed it for 7 touchdowns this year. So you're talking about 22 touchdowns for Daniel Jones this year. 22 touchdowns for Daniel Jones. That's pretty good to go along with 5 interceptions. And the Giants have made the determination that they think they can get to the next level with the combination of Daniel Jones, this Saquon Barkley, who's obviously going to be a part of the equation going forward. There's conversations about what happens with his contract. Does he get that $14 million a year deal? Brian Dable, who had a fantastic debut season for this team, putting them way beyond anybody's expectations and getting the Giants into the postseason, and not just getting into the postseason, but winning a game in the postseason on the road against a Minnesota team that, won 13 games this year. At 9-6-1 for Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback. Obviously, the team went 9-7-1, but 9-6-1 for Daniel Jones. Started 16 games, as I said, 15 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, threw for 3,200 yards in those 16 starts. And, it was his best year since his rookie season, where he had 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. And again, in that rookie season, you saw some signs that he could be, a quarterback that can play in this league. And then the last 2 years, he had trouble protecting the football, had some, issues staying healthy. This year, with Daboll there, and look, Daboll did this with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, went from being a good quarterback to a great quarterback, thanks in big part to Brian Daboll. And go and look at Josh Allen's numbers this year when Brian Daboll wasn't there. There are some people that would argue he took a small, not saying huge, not saying he's a bust or anything like that, but took a small step backwards. While you can argue Daniel Jones made a huge leap forward this year in terms of valuing and protecting the football. And his interception percentage was 1.1%. That's really, really good. So, the Giants have made the determination they can win with Daniel Jones. And they've said he is our quarterback going forward. They're not mincing words. They're not, they're not going to try to change, they're not going to try to drag this thing out. They're not bluffing. They're not hiding their cards. They're not Hollywooding it. They're making it very clear that Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback. Giants GM Joe Schoen says they're planning to move forward as if Daniel Jones will be their quarterback going forward. Now, what kind of deal do you give him after one big season like this? They could franchise him and just sort of buy themselves a year to figure it out. And unlike Lamar Jackson, who some people believe would decide to sort of wait it out and maybe hold out and not report to the team if they franchise him, if the Giants franchise Daniel Jones, I think he's going to take the $31.7 million for next year and run with it. They've got till March 7th, which is about, 6 weeks. Franchise tag deadline is March 7th. He says, Joe Schoen, the GM of the Giants, said it takes two. Both sides are going to have that conversation. We haven't crossed that bridge yet. There are tools at our disposal, meaning the franchise tag. Jones said he wanted to return. I really enjoyed my time here and I want to be here, Jones said. I think there's a business side of it all and a lot of it that I can't control. I have love and respect for this organization and ownership and the guys in this locker room, so I'd love to be here. I really enjoyed being here, and we'll see how it all works out. It's pretty cut and dry, isn't it? When you add in his rushing yards, by the way, Jones basically went for almost 4,000 total yards this year. And again, he was healthy for basically the entire season. Now, Joe Schoen said or sounded a little less optimistic on Saquon Barkley than some people in the media are. He wants him to come back, but Schoen didn't seem like it was as big of a priority. Barkley said he was not insistent on getting, Christian McCaffrey type money. That's $16 million a year. Franchise tag for a running back is likely to come in closer to $10 million. If the Giants offered Saquon Barkley $13 million a year, he's going to take it. But running backs just aren't valued in this league. You can go into the draft and find a running back anywhere. I'm not saying that's fair. I'm not saying that's correct, but that's just that's the perspective of general managers around the NFL. Is you can ride it out. And running backs are just incredibly disposable. And that's a shame because Saquon Barkley put together a year that should get him paid in this offseason. By the way, he's going to get paid. It's just a question of whether it's by the Giants or somebody else. Boy, if you were Tampa Bay, it's fun to do this. It's probably not reality, but it's fun to do it anyway. If you were Tampa Bay and you just went through this miserable year with Leonard Fournette not being able to run the football anywhere, not being able to, get anything done on the ground for this team. If you were Tampa Bay, you're telling me you wouldn't pay some big money for a guy like like Saquon Barkley in the offseason if he becomes available. Again, the Giants are going to franchise him if it gets to a point where they can't come to terms on a deal. So if I were the Giants, that's what I would do. Give him one more year at the franchise tag and then wait and see what happens. It's my dog in the background crying, by the way. Isn't that cute? Hey, Dookie, you can chill out, dude. Relax. Saquon Barkley isn't leaving yet. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And if you want to tweet at the show, go ahead and do it. At The Back Page, again on Twitter. At The Back Page. We'll do some live betting on the other side. The latest Super Bowl odds, Super Bowl MVP odds. Very interesting. And what do the odds makers think the most likely matchup is for the Super Bowl? That's coming up too. Stick around. We got more to do in this hour of the show. Coming up in about 20 minutes, Nick Hamilton, our 2-for-1 tonight. Talking about the Lakers situation after they make a trade for Rai Hachimura on Monday. All of that coming up as we continue on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Stop. Quarter past the hour. Final hour of a Monday/Tuesday edition of the show. Coming up in 15, my man Nick Ferguson. Nick Ferguson. Why did I say Nick Ferguson? My brains are scrambled. Nick Hamilton. My man Nick Hamilton. I got my Knicks confused. Nick Hamilton will join us. Nightcast Media also does a great job on all LA sports. He is based out of LA. I want to get his thoughts on the Lakers situation in the news today that they made a trade for Raya Chamura. So we'll talk with him about that. That is our 2-for-1 tonight. So you'll hear from Nick Hamilton also with SiriusXM coming up a little later on, about 15 minutes from now here on the show. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004, and on Twitter. Hit me up at the back page. Again, on Twitter at the back page. All right, I said we'd do some live betting. And we do owe you some live betting talk because we haven't talked much about. I haven't given you a winner tonight. We've been so good at giving winners throughout this season on the live betting front. We still do have a couple of games in progress as we speak. They are late in the fourth quarter in Portland with the Blazers all over the Spurs, 144-123. This crazy season of NBA scoring. Blazers have put up 144 on the Spurs tonight. I can't even imagine, not to go too far afield here, but knowing the success that Greg Popovich has had virtually his entire career with the San Antonio Spurs organization, how painful it must be for him this season to watch this team struggling the way it is. Now, I know the idea is to get Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson, who are considered the top two prospects in the NBA draft, but it's got to be tough, so tough for Popovich to watch a team playing this way. And you wonder, I mean, is he in it for the long haul that he's going to hang around to watch this team, develop a Scoot Henderson or a Wembanyama? I wonder. The other game that is in progress right now with 11:24 to go in the fourth quarter, it's Sacramento 102 and the Grizzlies, Sacramento 100, the Grizzlies 92. If you're looking for value, Memphis on the live money line right now is plus 440. The Grizzlies are plus 7.5. If you're looking at the live spread, it actually just dumped up to plus 9.5. And it just dumped up to plus 10.5. What is going on in that game? That's why. The Kings hit a 3. So it's Sacramento 103, Grizzlies 92. The live betting line on the spread is plus 9.5, plus 630 now on the money line. That's tasty. If you're about value, I mean, one of the best teams in the league, down 11 with 10.5 minutes to go, they're going to make a run in that game. But Sacramento's no joke, as we've seen throughout this season. The live total on that game, 248.5. Now 247.5. It just dropped as I was talking about it. So that's about it for what is left to be decided in the NBA tonight. All right, let's go back to football here for a second. On the betting front, live Super Bowl betting odds, outright to win the Super Bowl right now. But keep in mind, there's only 4 teams left, so obviously the odds on these teams drop a little bit, get a little shorter. Philadelphia, plus 230. They are your favorite to win the Super Bowl. Interesting, though, the second best favorite, now Cincinnati. The Bengals at plus 250. Kansas City is plus 280, and San Francisco is plus 320. Those are your Super Bowl odds to win the Super Bowl. Super Bowl MVP odds. So tricky making these bets when you don't even know which teams are going to be there. I mean, let's just say you take, Patrick Mahomes, and then he doesn't even get to the Super Bowl, and you just wasted your money. It's hard for me to stomach doing that sort of stuff this early, but I guess that's what futures betting is about. Jalen Hurts is your odds-on favorite right now to win the Super Bowl MVP at plus 290. Patrick Mahomes is plus 330. Joe Burrow is plus 330. Brock Purdy plus 650. Christian McCaffrey plus 1,700. Jamar Chase plus 2,400. There are more, but I am not going to spend an entire hour going through Crazy hypotheticals. This one's a bit more interesting to me. Super Bowl correct matchup bet. All of this, by the way, courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook. That's who we use for all of our betting needs here on the show. They do not sponsor us, by the way. Just making that known. FanDuel, if you want to get on board, I'm here. Cincinnati, Philadelphia is the shortest odds at plus 210. Bengals, Eagles plus 210 to be your Super Bowl matchup. Cincinnati, San Francisco comes in next at plus 310. I'm sorry. What comes in next is Kansas City, Philadelphia, which is plus 240. Cincinnati, San Francisco comes in at plus 310. Kansas City, San Francisco comes in at plus 350. I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's Kansas City. I think it's Cincinnati and San Francisco in the Super Bowl. If I'm making that bet, Cincinnati and San Francisco in the Super Bowl at plus 310. That would be my pick there. Let me give you one more. Super Bowl forecast. This is who Vegas thinks is going to win the Super Bowl. Or not who they think is going to win the Super Bowl, but the different scenarios of who could win the Super Bowl. Bengals beating the Eagles is plus 500. Bengals to beat the Niners is plus 700. Kansas City to beat the Eagles is plus 550. Kansas City to beat the 49ers is plus 700. Eagles to beat the Bengals is plus 490. And Eagles to beat the Chiefs is plus 550. There's a couple more. San Francisco to beat the Bengals is plus 700. San Francisco to beat the Chiefs is plus 750. Those are all your different Super Bowl forecast scenarios. I think the two I would look at is San Francisco to beat the Bengals and vice versa. So you'd either get the 49ers to beat the Bengals at plus 700 or the Bengals to beat the Niners at plus 700. See, now here's what's interesting to me. You put $100 on each of those, right? If you are steadfast in your belief, like I am, that it's going to be a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl, like if you feel so confident in that, then today you put $100 on each of those. You put $100 on San Francisco to beat Cincinnati in the Super Bowl, and you put $100 to beat for San Francisco. You put $100 for San Francisco to beat Cincinnati, and $100 for Cincinnati to beat San Francisco, and you can't lose as long as you get the matchup correct. Producer engineer Justin, are you there? Okay, I'm gonna give you your chance at glory tonight. Who's going to wind up in the Super Bowl? That's why I ask. Okay, that's one. Okay. You're a smart man if you follow me. I mean, that's what I've told people their entire careers. You just follow me and you're going to win. So that's a good, you're going to do all right there. San Francisco and Cincinnati. All right. It's a good job. That's who I think winds up there. So if it's me and I feel as strongly as I do, and I really do, I'm not going to tell you what I think about the spreads and picking the games because we'll do all that on Friday with Paige's picks. But if it's just straight up, who do I think is going to win these games this weekend? I think Cincinnati's going to win, and I think San Francisco's going to win. That's going to be our Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona in about 3 weeks. And interestingly, oh, God, I wish I could tell the audience. I can't tell the audience yet. We're working on something for Super Bowl Sunday. I cannot officially announce what it is. This is torture for me. I suck at keeping secrets. Nobody's worse at keeping secrets than me. But I got to keep this one. Working on something for Super Bowl Sunday. Just got to leave it there. Hopefully we'll be able to celebrate Cincinnati and San Francisco being in that Super Bowl together, though. All right, couple minutes from now, we'll switch gears in our 2-for-1 tonight. We're talking about the Lakers trade for Raya Chamura that took place earlier today. The Lakers and Wizards pulling off a deal. Kendrick Nunn is headed to Washington. We'll talk about it coming up in a couple of minutes with Nick Hamilton from Nightcast Media. He is the founder of that media company. He is also a host on SiriusXM. Nick Hamilton joins us on the other side to talk about this Lakers trade and what does it mean long-term for the Lakers. All of that as we continue on the Cash In on this Monday/Tuesday on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. All right, I got it on my end. Yes. Half past the hour, rolling along on this Monday. Half past the hour, rolling along on this Monday. Talked a lot about the NFL in the first 30 minutes of the show. We will shift gears a little bit, and a couple big stories coming out of LA today, one involving the Angels, one involving the Lakers. Lakers make a deal. I'm not sure if it's the one everybody wants them to make, but it's a deal. And Artie Moreno is apparently not going to be making a deal, talking about the owner of the Los Angeles Angels. Let's bring it in with our man. Nick Hamilton does a terrific job. The man with Nightcast Media, also Sirius XM, a host there, joins us on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app, the SportsMap the Cash In podcast as well. All right, start with the Lakers. I mean, everybody wants them to make a deal, upgrade this team, make it better. I'm sure LeBron wants them to make it better. What does Rui Hachimura do for this team?
Well, I think you get some size. I think you get some shooting that you need. I think they can always use more shooters. And then you get a decent three-point shooter out of him as well. So I think this was a good trade. Kendrick Nunn, unfortunately, just didn't work out for the Lakers. It's not that he's a trash player. He just didn't work out in the system that the Lakers had designed. And so I think, he may work out better in D.C. And be able to add to what they have going out over there. But I think, as far as what the Lakers needed, I think it addressed a couple of issues, but ultimately, I don't think it's the end all be all. But again, this is something that absolutely that's something that they needed to do, and it's a good trade for the Lakers.
Yeah.
I will say this is probably a very smart trade for the Lakers.
Yeah, and you know what? I get the sense with Nunn. I think he needs to go somewhere where he can play a lot more. And not to say he wasn't playing a lot with the Lakers, but I still don't think we truly know. I don't think he's even close to reaching his potential. I loved him when Miami went and got him. I loved him. I thought he was going to be, something that they could build and grow, and obviously it didn't work out there. Now you're talking about a guy that's already with his third NBA team, and when the die is cast that way on a guy, you just wonder how difficult it is for them to sort of recover and have a career.
Yeah, I think when you look at the overall dynamic of what this team is, how it's been constructed, and the blueprints of it, it's very puzzling at times because you look at, okay, what does LeBron really need? And the fact that we said this time and time again, Jason, what LeBron needs is to be surrounded with shooters, right? Apparently they didn't get him what he needed. And then LeBron is obviously not as happy as he would like to be, because of the way the team is going. But also, you can't just look at Rob Pelinka or everybody in the front office. You also have to look at LeBron James, because he's the one that has signed off, I'm sure, on quite a bit of movement and deals behind the scenes, whether he wants to admit to that or not. So I don't feel that sorry for LeBron. I understand his frustration because he still wants to win. The man is playing at a very high caliber in his 20th season. We don't see too many superstars of his caliber play at this high of a level in their 20th year. So I think you understand it, but at the same time, the Lakers, as long as they have Rob Pelinka as general manager, and there's nothing personal against him, but when they gave him that extension, I said, okay, the Lakers are done winning championships. And I think LeBron knows this, whether he openly admits it or not. They're done winning championships. LeBron is right now about usurping the record that Kareem has set as being the all-time NBA scorer, which he will be. I think he's fourth as a Laker over Byron Scott in three-pointers. So they're going to be individual records to enjoy about LeBron, and enjoy LeBron now while you can, because eventually he is going to break down. He is going to get older. Father Time is undefeated. So I think once he gets the record of being the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, I think you'll see some sort of drop-off because it's hard to keep it up at that level. Will he be able to play with his son as he desires to play with Bronny? That remains to be seen.
I think he will. Really? You doubt? I think he's going to be. Bronny's only 2-3 years away. I think he's going to play with him.
Listen, Bronny is not a one and done project. He is 2 and done at the least. But he's going to come out after 1 year, and it's not going to be what everybody thinks it is. Because even though I think that kid is talented, I think he will benefit by staying in college. Because the more he understands the college game and be able to go up against some real deal competition and develop his game and let his game develop and grow and mature, and come to him, he's not going to be a stellar NBA player like his dad. One, that's a lot of pressure. Okay, you got to admit that everybody's going to always measure you up to your dad, right? So you have to do something that's going to be a tad bit different. So Bronny has his own identity. Okay. And if he comes out one and done, he's not going to be the most effective player that he can be. If you watch his study now, his brother's a little bit nicer than him. Okay. But when you look at Bronny, and as far as you see the skill set, you see the potential, but at the same time, he's not a one and done kid. This is a two and done kid, maybe three and out. Look at Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma stayed the length of his college career, and look how much of a player he developed into, right? Because he benefited from staying in college. He benefited from working on his game, being around in a D1 program, being able to work on his shooting, work on his skill set, work on his defense, work on his ball handling skills. And those are the things, those are the key things that make a player an effective player. We talk about LeBron, but LeBron has struggles for quite a while. Right? We look at the greats like Kobe Bryant. Kobe struggled, at times when his first couple of years, right? Same thing with Kevin Garnett. Same thing. These are guys, Michael Jordan in his second year. Look, he broke his leg, but I'm saying he had struggles too in those early years. It takes time for guys to develop sometimes. And I think Bronny is one of those.
Talking with Nick Hamilton gives us some time. Nightcast Media does a terrific job there. Also, Sirius XM, if you want to catch them as well. Talking a little bit about the Lakers and LeBron. I think, and look, you've seen them more than I have probably in person and even on TV, because God knows it feels like I get blacked out from every game here on the it's awful. The blackout stuff kills me. Every time they're on national TV, I can't watch them. I get blacked out. Or they're like on NBA TV and I get blacked out. I watch this Laker team, and maybe you're going to disagree with me on this. I feel like they're better than the record. They've lost a lot of games close late. Some bad officiating's cost them recently. Without Anthony Davis, I got a feeling they're going to go on a bit of a run in the second half. I know you're going to say I'm nuts. I think there's two teams that are going to go on runs in the second half. One of them's the Warriors, who I think, are very capable of winning. I think they got something like 36 games left. If they went, 23-13 or 24-12 in that stretch, I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Lakers are going to win some games, when they get Davis back and have this entire group together. I think they're going to win some games in the second half. I certainly think they're going to make it into the top 10 and get into the, the play-in situation. I don't know how far up they get in that list. What do you think?
Well, in the words of the great Bill Parcells, your record reflects who you are. Okay? Their record is exactly who they are. Regardless of what the excuses or the reasons may be, their record is exactly what they are. They could go, there's a potential they could go on a run in the second half, but I'll tell you another team I have a lot more confidence in going in runs, like you mentioned, the Golden State Warriors. Also look at the New Orleans Pelicans when Brandon Ingram starts to really get back and find his groove. And also the Portland Trailblazers. I think that's a team that's very going to be sneaky, that's going to be very sneaky in the second half. They're going to go really under the radar on a lot of teams, and they're going to fool some teams in that second half of the season.
Okay.
So those are three things I would pay attention to the most. The Clippers, on the other hand, are the iffy team, because the Clippers
Who knows what the hell they are, Nick? Who knows what the hell they are?
But here's the problem with the Clippers. The Clippers are so inconsistent, right? And they've had 50 million different lineups since the season began, right? Yeah. So they've dealt with injuries. They have dealt with lineup changes. And this is a team that we said in the beginning was a very deep roster. And they were. They were a very deep roster. They looked scary. Like, when you think about having Kawhi Leonard coming back, we know that when Kawhi plays his A game, he's a top-notch player. We know that. Him, Paul George, you added John Wall, who's now been a disappointment. I need to find the receipt because we need to get our money back. And what you saw in the beginning, the first 15, 20 games, you were like, okay. Even without Kawhi, even though Kawhi was in and out, you said, okay, Paul George to stay healthy, he put this team on his shoulders. We saw he's done that before, and he carried them to the Western Conference Finals, right? So you say, okay, Paul George can do X, Y, and Z. As long as the rest of the guys are healthy, we'll worry about Kawhi when he comes back, right? But as long as you got the other main component in Paul George, you got John Wall playing right, you got Reggie Jackson and those boys, you figured, okay, they'll at least be a top 4, top 5 team.
Yeah.
Right?
I got listen, I get what you're saying. I'm up against the break, so I got to go. In one word, Artie Moreno keeping the Angels. Bad thing, right?
Stupid.
I got to go. Thanks. Nick Hamilton, always appreciate the time, my man.
Thank you.
We'll come back. More to do as we continue in this hour of the Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. But
Thank you, man.
yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to get more with you on the Angels, but I could talk basketball with you all day. Man, that sucks. That sucks for the Angels. All right, a little Huey Lewis. Not bad. Not bad, Justin, considering we talked about him earlier. Now, this was from the Back to the Future soundtrack. God, you weren't even alive when that movie came out. That's what's sad. See, he turns down the music as soon as I mentioned that. That's from the original Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox. Yeah. Oh, okay. So then you know. There you go. Good. One of Michael J. Fox's probably all-time favorite movies, too. 1-800-224-2004 in the remaining moments of the show. 800-224-2004. Boy, when we went to go throw to that interview, I think I said it was Memphis up 11. I think they I'm sorry, it was Sacramento up 11 with, I don't know, like 10 or 11 minutes left. Or, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 minutes. But bottom line, it wound up being a 30-point blowout for Sacramento. It wasn't even close. Oy vey. My goodness. That's a heck of a win for Sacramento tonight. They just keep making statements, this Sacramento team. And look, I don't know if Mike Brown is, if this team is, well, we know this team is not on that next level, but that's a good win tonight for Sacramento. What was the final here? See if I can find it. Final was, I got the wrong date up. That's why. Final tonight was Sacramento 133, Memphis 100. They beat the Grizzlies. Boy, there were some lopsided games around the league time. Listen to this. Milwaukee beat Detroit 150-130. I mean, that's just a bonkers box score. My God. Milwaukee shot 56% from the field. 50% has become like the new standard in the league, by the way. If you don't shoot 50% in a game, you're not, like, it used to be, you shoot 47, 48% from the field in a game. Now, if you're not shooting at least 50% from the field, you're not hitting the average. I'll guarantee you the average field goal percentage is way up this year. Antetokounmpo, by the way, 29 in the win for Milwaukee, which improves to 30-17. They get him back after being out with a bit of an injury. Clippers beat Dallas, as was heard on our Dallas affiliate, 97.1. The Freak. Clippers beat Dallas 112-98 tonight. What did Luka do? Did Luka not play? Let's see. No, Luka played. Luka had 29 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists in the loss for Dallas, which drops to 25-23. Let's see, what else did we have here? We don't talk about Orlando much on this show, except for when I talk about Bol Bol, who, if anybody knows, I absolutely love Bol Bol. Can't get enough of him. But, teams that are on the rise, watch Orlando. Watch Orlando. Not this year. They're not winning anything. And I think we're on in Orlando. Watch the Magic. I mean, look, they're 5 games out of the play-in tournament or anything like that. So I'm not expecting, barring something unforeseen in the second half of the year. And they've won. I think they're 5-5 in their last 10. But Orlando can play, man. They beat Boston against, I think it's the second or third time they've beaten Boston this year. And I get it. The Celtics didn't play all their stars and all that stuff. And, Blake Griffin was starting for them. Actually, they did. Jason Tatum and Al Horford and Jaylen Brown played. What am I saying? So that's a great win for Orlando tonight. Bol had a big block in that game. I don't know why he's not starting for them. I get that they've got a lot of young talent, but how is Bol not out there starting for that team? The dude is a human cheat code. Paulo Banchero, 23 points, 5 rebounds in the win for Orlando. I'm telling you, that team's going to be good. They need to go get some guys, go get a couple of guys in free agency. But Cole Anthony was on the receiving end of a alley-oop tonight, and it was just almost brought the house down. almost brought the house down in Orlando tonight. That's a great win for that Orlando team. And it's nice. They had a sellout crowd. Fans. I think the fans are starting to come back and get it in Orlando that this young team is definitely going in the right direction. So, win for Orlando tonight, 113-98. Chicago beat Atlanta 111-100. I was reading an interesting article today about the idea of Trae Young potentially being, one of those he's getting hit with the CK, and I don't mean Calvin Klein. It's the two letters you never want to hear if you are an NBA player or, frankly, a star on any team, and that is the words Coach Killer. It's what you're starting to hear around the league when it comes to Trae Young. May have been overvalued, may have been overhyped, may have been oversold. Atlanta certainly bought in, gave him a huge contract, and now you're watching him have nights like tonight, 7 of 16, 21 points. He had 13 assists, but Atlanta's a 500 team, and when they gave him that deal and built around him, the idea was not that this was going to be a 500 team. They gave Clint Capella all that money, got Bogdanovich, got Dejounte Murray. It's a mess in Atlanta. And look, sadly, Nate McMillan's going to be the one to pay for it with his job because you can't fire players. You can only fire coaches, as we always tell you on this show and as you're smart enough to already know. But I will remind you, scary, DeAndre Hunter didn't play tonight because of an asthma attack. When was the last time you saw that in a box score? DMP, asthma attack. But Atlanta's a mess right now. And they've I don't know. I think Nate McMillan will make the season, but they might just be starting to figure out that roster is not that roster is currently constructed, just can't win in the East. So we'll see what happens there. Houston, we don't have a problem for a change. The Rockets won tonight. Beat Minnesota 119-114. Houston leading the way right now for that top overall pick in the draft, the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Leading the way. So that's the one. Listen, if you're going to suck, go all the way with it. I say this all the time. Don't be like the Texans. If you're going to suck, go all the way. And right now, they look like they are in a position to do that. Utah beat Charlotte tonight, 120-102. Jazz continue to be one of the surprises in the Western Conference, along with Sacramento. And as we mentioned, Portland just absolutely put the screws to San Antonio. 147-127 was the final score there tonight. If you missed it earlier in the show, a little bit of news tonight breaking while we were on the air. Tom Brady, the Let's Go podcast that he hosts every week on SiriusXM. Jim Gray tonight put the question to Brady about whether or not he is going to be playing next season or retiring. And as you'll hear, Tom wasn't all that fond of the question.
Tom, you're leaving everybody guessing. You said you'll take your time. Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
I sense you're antagonized by the question.
You're scratching.
It's only the question that everybody wants to hear.
You're scratchy. I appreciate your asking. Thank you.
There you go. So Jim Gray asked the question. Tom Brady gave the answer. Hasn't made up his mind as to what he's going to do in the offseason. I'll say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If he's got a chance to win a Super Bowl somewhere, if there's a roster, if there is a team that calls and says, we want Tom Brady, this may not be dictated by Brady. You know when Barry Bonds, essentially was forced to retire? When nobody would sign him. Now, obviously, there was some baggage that he came with, and that's part of the reason he didn't get signed. But baggage or no baggage, the market will dictate whether or not Tom Brady retires. If there is a market for Tom Brady and it includes a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl next year and he likes that spot, Tom Brady will play next year. Otherwise, He'll retire. Simple as that. That's how we wrap up this Monday/Tuesday edition of the show. Nice job producing it and engineering it, Justin. We're back with you on Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. I'm Jason Page. Thanks for listening to the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye! All right. Thanks, brother. Have a good night. All right. Have a good night. Bye. Ba-dum-bum-bum. All right. That's going to do it for us on the video side as well. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for hitting us up on the phones. Thank you for listening on the audio side, the video side, all that good stuff. We're back with you. I can't wait to make this announcement about Super Bowl Sunday. There is news coming about Super Bowl Sunday. That's all I'm going to say. But that's going to do it for us tonight. I'll catch you back here on Tuesday night. Until then, I'm Jason Page. Have yourselves a great night. Thanks for watching.